Hi, welcome back to my video training series, Are Sales Wounds Stopping You from Achieving Your Goals? My name is Julia Kline. And in this video, we are talking about two wounds that are closely related to each other because they exist on a continuum. And they are sales wound number 3, the selling wound, and sales wound number 4, the anti-selling wound. The selling wound is about the urge to force yourself on your customers, whereas the anti-selling wound is about the utter refusal to do anything of the kind. The cause of both wounds is our culture of forceful salesmanship here in the United States. Everything about our consumer culture teaches us that the way to sell effectively is to relentlessly badger and hound and even assault your prospective customers into buying from you. If you respond to this approach by embracing it and doing your best to implement it, then you suffer from the selling wound. If, on the other hand, you respond to this approach by resisting it and refusing to have anything whatsoever to do with it, then you suffer from the anti-selling wound. Now, there is a third option, since these two wounds do exist on a continuum, right? A figure eight, an infinity symbol, a continuum, and that is that you have found yourself in the middle. And that is the path of ethical salesmanship, which is the master path of both of these two wounds. When you're on the master path of either of these two wounds, when you've come from either direction, you recognize the essential and irrefutable value of both yourself and your customer. You regard yourself and your customer as equally important in the transaction. And you honor your own right to earn a living, and a very good living, if that's what you're interested in doing, by selling products and services that serve the highest and best good of both your customer and yourself. Being on the master path of ethical salesmanship, that point in the middle between the two extremes, means that it allows you to be extremely successful and earn a lot of money, if that's what you want to do, in selling products and services, because you know that you are not the only one winning in any given sale that you make. You feel a bone-deep certainty that the customer that buys from you is receiving a tremendous amount of benefit as well. So that's the master path. That's the goal of both of these wounds. Now, let's take a look at each one in turn at what the student path looks like, what the symptoms are if you are suffering from the wound on either end of the spectrum here. For sales wound number 3, the selling wound, the core self-limiting belief is sales is a zero-sum game. It's them or me, and God knows it is not going to be me. So in order to be successful, I have to be willing to do or say just about anything in order to close the deal. And the fear that motivates this belief, way over at the far end of this selling continuum, or what pushes you over there, is that you are always on the verge of losing out. You're afraid that you're about to lose the next deal, that a competitor is about to steal your best customer, or that a coworker is about to muscle in on your territory. You're spinning in this little cyclone of self-involved anxiety about what might happen to you. And your response to this is to become fiercely competitive, a workaholic, and highly money motivated. Now, those qualities might initially sound like they're positive characteristics, especially for a professional salesperson. But these morph into a deep, dark, damaging wound when they are fueled by a deeper self-limiting belief of not enough. I don't have enough money. There aren't enough hours in the day. I didn't work hard enough. The last deal wasn't big enough. And your response to all of this not enough fear is to get really determined to go out and get enough any way you can. The interesting thing is that people who are suffering from this wound the most, who most strongly feel these beliefs, tend to be rather successful in sales because, unfortunately, sleazy, manipulative, forceful sales tactics can be effective. The problem is that they also can eventually catch up with you. The most common manifestation of this is the proverbial sales slump. When a top closer hits a dry spell, it's often because something inside of them is screaming out, "Stop doing this! This is no good. There has to be a better way. I can't keep doing this to people." Another way that the selling wound can catch up with you, of course, is in the form of career-ending ethics investigations of various kinds, if the tactics that you're doing are really bad. And by the way, if you find yourself engaging in distasteful sales practices, but you're doing it because you're being forced to, either by your employer or by forces within your industry, then your wound starts to be more of a prostitution wound rather than a selling wound. And that's one that we're going to get to in just a minute, because the prostitution wound is sales wound number 5. But if you're watching this video and you resonate with the selling wound, what's most likely true about you is that you're either an entrepreneur or a professional salesperson who at this moment in time isn't really making that many sales. And now maybe you've never been very good at salesmanship, or maybe you used to be great and you're just in a big sales slump. Either way, there's a part of you that's saying, I've got to get over this because I've got to go out and make some sales. I need to make some money. This is how I support myself. While another part of you is saying, but I just can't. I can't do this. I hate pushing myself on people in this way. This is wrong. I don't like being this person. While that first part of you is saying, I don't care. You got to go out and do it. Suck it up. So how do you get from there to the master path? How do you get from being completely focused on your own need to sell stuff for your own reasons, because you've got to sell stuff, you've got to make money, you've got to support yourself and your family. How do you get from there to a place of feeling what I said was the master path, this bone deep certainty that anyone who buys from you is benefiting from the transaction as much as you are? And not only feeling this way, but also having it manifest in lots and lots and lots of successful sales. The answer, quite frankly, is you sign up for the workshop that I'm doing next week that I talked about at the beginning of this video series. I'm doing a 2-hour live online workshop that is specifically designed to heal the selling wound and anti-selling wound, to bring you from the extremes of this continuum to the middle path of ethical salesmanship. And what's required is a mindset shift, but also a shift in your practical day-to-day sales tactics. Like, what are you actually doing to reach out to customers and bring them in? The words you're saying, the methods that you're using, all that kind of stuff, that you need to make some shifts. And the good news is that you can make those shifts pretty quickly if they go along with these mindset shifts that I'm talking about. And this is true whether you are suffering from the selling wound, which we've been talking about, or if you're suffering from the anti-selling wound. Because the anti-selling wound, as I said, is just the opposite end of the same continuum. And the core self-limiting belief of the anti-selling wound is, I can't actively sell my products and services without jeopardizing or sacrificing my integrity or my relationships with my customers and my prospective customers and clients. So I'm just not going to do it. I will just wait for customers to come to me. I will depend upon referrals, repeat business, dumb luck, etc., because I am just not going to go out and force myself on people. And this belief is fueled by the fear that people will respond with extreme negativity if you try to sell them anything or push something on them, which is probably how you feel it if you suffer from the anti-selling wound. And this makes you extremely resistant to do any kind of salesmanship whatsoever. You don't want to send out your email newsletter. You don't want to do any follow-up phone calls. If you do manage to get yourself to a networking event, you don't want to talk about what you do for a living. If you do get somebody to start talking about what you do for a living, you don't know how to close the sale. You don't know how to ask for money. All that stuff. Anything that has to do with salesmanship. Just nope. Don't want any part of any of it. It all feels pushy, obnoxious, and rude, and I'm not going to do it. The problem with this and this flat out unwillingness to sell is that it's not sustainable. Your business is not going to last. And certainly if you're a professional salesperson, you're definitely not going to last for very long if this is your attitude towards salesmanship. You have to engage in selling if you're going to be successfully bringing in money and sustaining yourself at what you do for a living. But you've never been able to come up with a tolerable alternative. You may have taken sales workshops or watched other people's videos that said they're going to teach you heart-centered sales techniques that claim that they will make you feel better about selling. But if they haven't worked for you, which I assume they haven't if you're watching this video, it's because they didn't address the real cause, which is that part of you is absolutely convinced that to be good at sales, you have to be pushy, obnoxious, and rude. Because the fact is that most people that are teaching heart-centered salesmanship are suffering from the anti-selling wound themselves. So they haven't addressed it in themselves, so they can't teach you how to address it in yourself. That's what makes this training that I'm offering different. Because I, frankly, spent the beginning part of my career as a pushy salesperson. I used to brag that I could sell snow to an Eskimo. But then I realized, well, Eskimos don't need snow, so that's a pretty crappy thing for me to do. To brag about being able to force people to buy stuff that they don't really need and that won't solve their problems. So by healing that selling wound in myself and coming to embrace a methodology that is effective, because I'm a closer, I like to close sales, I like to be successful. I've developed this methodology that is effective at closing sales, but which also allows people to feel really, both you and your customer, your prospect. People tell me all the time, oh my gosh, Julia, you are such a good salesperson, but it feels so good to talk to you. Like, you have such good presence and there's such a wonderful energy about you. And I hear there's some people that I'm engaging in sales conversations with. And I can teach you how to do the same thing. What I need you to do, though, is to trust me that what I have to teach you is different than whatever other sales videos or approaches you may have learned. I hear it all the time from people who attend my workshops or my lectures or whatever. Gosh, Julia, I've been in sales for 20 years. I've been a sales manager for 10, and I've never heard anybody talk about salesmanship the way you just did. The things that the ways, the suggestions you've made for how to improve the sales process, I've never heard it before, ever. So this stuff is different. If you're willing to give me the benefit of the doubt that it just might be true, go on over to juliakline.com/workshop and check out this online live workshop that I'm doing later in the week and see if it might not be the exact thing that you need to get past this selling or anti-selling wound that you've been suffering from.